Hey everybody, I'm Christopher Green. You're watching AMTV, Alternative Media Television. Today I want to talk about the dark cloud hanging over Washington, D.C. today. We see this with the Brett Kavanaugh hearings and also what you might be missing. In addition to that, I want to follow up on this emergency presidential alert of which we warned about, of which FEMA then delayed, and then of which we got yesterday. And millions of Americans' phones, of course, were hit by this emergency text message that said no action was needed. No action was needed. Now, of course, most of what this is psychological warfare because the use case really isn't a good use case. Think about this for a minute. Let's say you're in a movie theater or you're in a huge stadium at a football game, and everybody in the stadium, while they're eating hot dogs and having a beer, gets an emergency text message that, God forbid, one of America's cities had been nuked by a foreign enemy. How does that help anyone sitting in that stadium? What does that do outside of cause panic? In fact, there's a book I encourage you to read, although you need a mindset for it. It's called 1 Second After. It talks about what happens in a very realistic way I think it's set in South Carolina, after an EMP hits, what to expect. In fact, it was recommended to be read by all congressmen and women. And there was a foreword written by Newt Gingrich. Now, that in and of itself tells you there's a little bit of laced propaganda within that novel. However, it's a very good novel, and it basically lays out with grave accuracy what would happen in the event of that kind of emergency. Now, of course, we see this with active drills that correlate and coordinate with actual events, whether or not this is September 11th or the dozens or so of examples that you could list in the comment box below, but I'm not going to bore you with that today. The point being, this is overreaching and overarching psychological propaganda, psychological warfare. In addition, it only proves what Edward Snowden, Julian Assange, who now I believe has been arrested, have been telling us for years, that just like they can send you a text message through every service provider in the United States of America, whether or not this is T-Mobile, Verizon, or anything else, and they can access your data from the chips that they embed in the phones that you can't turn off. You see, it goes both ways, not just with the text messages being sent out, but also on the receiving end coming back in, of course, to the NSA. So it brings up a lot of questions. Also, what irritates me is the general masses that are so indoctrinated believe that, like, this is normal. They believe nothing is wrong. Like, oh, the government's there to help us. Yeah, they're going to send us an emergency text alert before the nuke bombs go off. Or before, God forbid, martial law is declared here in the United States of America. Now, those are not my words. Those were the words of your congressmen telling you in 2008 and 2009 that if we didn't bail out the banks, there would be martial law in the streets of America. In addition to that, I want to talk a little bit about the Kavanaugh hearing and the post-wrap. And I've been careful, you've probably been careful to note, I haven't talked about it for a reason, because there's a big piece of the puzzle that people are missing. Yes, I think it's grotesque, but mostly I really just think it's a carrot being dangled in front of the general groundlings, right? Is like in the Shakespearean play, they just throw breadcrumbs. It's just entertainment, folks, okay? This is like watching the O.J. Simpson trial. Okay, it's meant to divide and conquer the American people. It's being used as a political tool and political ploy. That should be obvious. It's like reading People magazine or Us Weekly and eating your popcorn. Okay, while you're focused on that, you're missing the bigger picture. Now, there's been some fear that martial law may in fact be declared here in the United States of America sometime soon, that even Donald Trump could go as far as to jail the dark, deep state. Now, to me, I find that very scary. In general, I mean, if that were to occur, I wouldn't necessarily say that's a good thing. That's not really a constitutional republic. That would be a coup like what we see in lesser second and third world countries. But I think even then, people are missing the point. The point is, this country is more divided than it's ever been. The point is, we live in an Orwellian totalitarian state where they control all messaging. They control all media. And the centralized silos that make up the internet today tell you what to think. There is no diversity of opinion, nor is there really a diversity of politics. Look how they're even treating the Kavanaugh episode, so to speak. They're saying, well, if he gets in, even if he's renominated and then he gets in, that'll just hurt Republicans, and then the Democrats will take the Senate or the House or whatever it is. Or if he doesn't get in, he'll go this way. I mean, it's political jockeying. And the American people need to wake up to the truth. We saw this in Hawaii. I've got family out in Hawaii. They sent these intercontinental ballistic missile warnings saying that it was a real crisis, and Hawaiians were throwing their children down into the storm drains. Okay, there's been interviews post that event where the guy that allegedly had the fat thumb, if that is to be believed, which it's not, tells you, no, he thought it was a real event. He thought it was a real event, not a test. Not a test. Again, the American people, they brainwash themselves to actually believing what the government and the state actually tells them. I mean, George Orwell's laughing in his grave. You do realize there's like 10 different processes, restrictive measures that you have to go through before you can just accidentally, hit your thumb on a button that tells you nukes have been launched at the state of Hawaii. It's not just an accident. There's multiple security clearances and levels of command for that message to even be sent. Just like it's not an accident, they sent you a presidential alert yesterday. There was reports that a lot of people's phone calls were dropped. Some weren't. So the point is, in the overall message, and I want to hear from you guys, put your questions, comments, thoughts in the box below, is that we are reaching a tipping point and a boiling point. I've talked about this for years, death by 1,000 cuts, right? Boiling frog syndrome. This is where we are today. Tensions have risen when it comes into, we're looking at America's enemies, Russia, China. What we see in the South China Sea today with the dredging up of islands, the economic collapse on the horizon, fiat currency dying right before our very eyes, hyperinflation in foreign nations, probably soon coming to a country near you. This is what is happening. This is what the Kavanaugh hearings illustrate. So don't get so inclined into the entertainment factor of these events as like a bystander watching a good movie or good theater, because that's all that it is. That's all that it is. It's meant to divide and to take your attention and your focus, relieve your focus from what really matters. I mean, this is propaganda 101. These are the basics of all of it. And it's getting tougher and tougher to find really valid information, critical thinking, where we're actually thinking for ourselves and we are questioning authority and questioning what's being force-fed to all of us. I want to hear your thoughts. Those are all my comments, wrapped up in summation, hard-hitting and in your face. Click the link below. Support us. Also, we just launched our gold course, How to Profit with Gold and Silver and Prepare for What's Ahead. I encourage you to take advantage of that offer. Prices are going up soon, and we have limited seating. Teaches everything that you need to know. Also, how to avoid confiscation from the government, etc. I've got multiple episodes coming, more episodes coming in the next few days. We just had our launch, so we appreciate your support. God bless.
Shalom. First and foremost, Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahweh Shai, Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahweh Shai. Call Lord Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahweh Shai, double honors to the elder apostles of Great Millstone that taught me this truth, and much love, greetings, and salutations to the hopeful elected tabernacle of David. Last night I was checking out the 5150 show, and when I clicked on it, they happened to be going into the so-called white man, and they brought up some key points that I would like to play in this video, and then go into the scriptures. But the topic was dealing with the control over this system, which is Esau controlled, and how they maintain this narrative of so-called white supremacy because of the control that they do have. And he brought up a good point talking about Corey Hogan. He said we need to stop calling them, white supremacists, You know, stop even giving in to the social construct that they created for themselves. Because really, when you say that, you kind of giving them, you know, too much credit. And I agree with that, because there's nothing superior about the base, the most base nation that ever came into existence of the planet. All right, these are scum of the earth. These are the worst people known to man. All right, they steal everything. They didn't took everything that don't belong to them. Okay, they do not have a special talent unless it comes to wickedness. You know, whether it be you know, killing, coming up with ways to cause mischief and injury towards others. All right, deceit, lies. You know, them are the only things that he really is good at. But outside of that, you know, this man, he. So I want to play this video just so you see that not only are people waking up to this man, but also that the curses is definitely coming upon him, because all these different bywords that we didn't went by since he's been in power, you know, it's time for us to acknowledge that these are all terms that our oppressor, our enemy, gave us. Okay, and it's time to denounce those titles, and you need to really be calling him by the bywords and proverbs. All right, because he's on his way down and we're on our way up. So let me play the clip so you can hear what they were saying. All right.
Let me say this shit because it really needs to be said. All you voting motherfuckers especially, because I can't stand you punk ass motherfuckers who tell somebody you need to vote and all that shit. Let me tell you something, man. The government knows everything about these motherfuckers. It's a cell meant to destroy in this country. They're terrorists. And the government knows about them. They just put them on blast right now. If there was a black organization in this country traveling around the United States starting riots like they did out there in Charlottesville, not only would everybody who was there be locked the fuck up, your family who might know about it might be motherfucking locked up right now.
Right.
The government allows these motherfuckers, just like they allow the police, because they are the government. Motherfucker, have you ever thought about that? Do you have common sense? You wondering, oh, they did this.
And he's talking about you gullible ass simple Negroes that still believe in this system, as if the system isn't all being controlled by one entity. Everything that you see that goes on in this society, it all goes back to the elite. All these different false flag attacks, these scandals, the elections. You know, it's the same people behind the scenes, man. These different protests from these different organizations that are being funded. It all goes back to the same crooks, man. It's time for you Jakes, you simple Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans to wake up, man. All right? It should be common knowledge by now, man. What he's saying is definitely the truth, man. All right? This is a comedian. But comedians, one thing about comedians, man, is they, a lot of the times, their goal is to get you to, laugh or whatnot. You tend to not take them serious because they're being paid to, say jokes. But a lot of the times, man, the real comedians, they say real shit, man, whether you laugh or not. Okay? That's one thing I respect about Corey, even though, he's lost in the sauce too. But evidently, he's coming to fruition that certain things ain't right in the society. I wouldn't be surprised if you really do watch us, man. But listen to some more of this.
No, they're doing it because they're the ones in charge of what's happening to you.
Right.
And
yeah, like this whole black identity extremist thing. The government is behind that shit, man. All right? Their whole goal is to get you Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans underfoot, man. They want to they're coming up with some type of method to try to get you all categorized to persecute you, man. Especially if you coming up, and you have a sense of dignity and pride about yourself. You come into the realization that uh, uh, especially if you're waking up to the knowledge of the truth, you know. But anything that's considered extreme in the enemy's eyes, and they could use that against you. They round in a roundabout way, they're calling you a terrorist. You know, well, the government has the power to do so. Okay, but let's continue.
Thing I want to say about this shit is it really needs to be said because, I was standing in front of the Improv last night, talking with all my motherfucking comedy homies and all the motherfuckers that be out there. It be street motherfuckers out there too. And I was talking to one of these motherfuckers I know. He a wild boy. His name is they call him Boo Capone out here.
Oh, Boo Capone.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying?
Homie.
Yeah.
I fuck with Boo.
Boo be high to the motherfucker half the time, but
Ain't funny as hell.
right. He don't stop. That motherfucker mouth, he go all night.
He got jokes.
But he said some real shit that I motherfucking agree with 100. And he said, you giving them people credit when you call them white supremacists. Because they got a word that they could be proud of.
They like that. They're
Supreme.
Right.
You giving them the supreme tag. But they call you a minority. Like
Exactly. They calling you minority. They calling you black. Okay. All these different terms that he coined together. And they know terms have meaning. He called himself white, which means pure, innocent. And he called you black, which means what? Negative, void of light. All right. The color that you wear when you bury the dead, and got you jakes embracing it. Embracing blackness, man. Darkness and ignorance. But the white man, not only are we white, but we're also superior. So when we call them, when we say that this is white supremacy, we're saying that the white man is the so-called white man because he's not white. Now that's one of the biggest lies he ever said about himself was that he's white, when there's nothing white about his skin. All right. So should we continue to call him by those titles that he wants you to call him? Or did he not, through all the wicked history of all the things that he's done, throughout the course of time, did he not earn himself a ill name, a ill reputation? Because right now his shame is being seen, and he's being constantly exposed throughout the world, and everybody is waking up to it. So instead of calling him white or white supremacist, a white supremacist, call him what he really is. All right, and that's the point he's trying to make. All right, this man then went and colonized and murdered and massacred people. He's the biggest freak and pedophile and fornicator, like the scriptures say. He's profane. The scriptures insult him better than Jake do. The scriptures call him exactly what he is, man. The dragon, the devil, Satan, the serpent. Okay, eat him. And when I play the clip, you're gonna see that even Corey Holcomb knows about the term Edomite. He kind of pronounced it a little wrong, but you could tell, he's been watching us, man. All right, but the point that he's making is actually true. And now that the bad things are starting to happen to these devils, now they feel like they're being attacked. But hey, everything is only just being reciprocated back to you. Everything that you put out is all coming back to you, and you don't know how to handle it. So all them years of you calling us niggas and monkeys and coons, niggers, all right, wetbacks, okay, tomahawks, you know, you called us all type of beaners, you know. So hey, everything is coming back on you now, and you earned it, man. And the titles that we call your ass, you earned it. All right, you could say it's racist, you could say whatever, man, but you earned it. So let's play it so you can see, you know, and then you're gonna see even the comment board, man. They was lightning the Esau ass, man, of what to actually call him instead of a white man. Okay, that's giving him too much credit, man. Ain't nothing white about him. He's not pure. So let's play some more and let's get the scriptures.
Words to describe you. The words to describe you are weak shit. No, that's what I thought. As soon as he said, I don't fuck with that white supremacist word shit, and it went over a lot of niggas' head. But I'm the type of motherfucker. I was sitting back. I was like, that's real.
Right. Boo Capone.
That's real.
Yeah,
motherfucker.
So what would you?
So I would say, like, to all my people out here who call them white supremacists, we need to change that name and call them what they really are.
I can fuck with that.
I mean, like, I don't know where you want to start, but I got some derogatory names that describes them for what they are.
Your top 3 names for what we should call them.
Pink dick devils.
Oh my God.
And look, and there they are finna come up. And one of the first names that I see right here is Edomites, showing you that you know, Jake is waking up all over, man. All right, that's their biblical nationality, Edom, Esau. Edom, which is the Hebrew word Adawan, which means red. All right, that's exactly what they are, man. They're red. They're red devils. Okay, and then you got the colonizers, and yeah, that's his history. His long track record is going around colonizing and taking what don't belong to him with the force of the sword, man. Okay, that's why when you read in Habakkuk, the 2nd chapter, you know, that's the taunting proverb against him. Woe unto him that increaseth that which is not his, because that's all the white man has known to do, was take what don't belong to him. All right, by force. You can't trust him. So hey, all these terms of these evil terms are all being associated with Esau, man. Okay, and look, the people are speaking, man. Hey, the colonizers, heathens. Hey, they damn sure heathens. That's for sure. All right, terrorists. Yeah, ultimately. All right, they're definitely terrorists. That the Bible's. Hey, man. People that got access to atomic and nuclear bombs, and you're the main one that's using them. How could we not call you a terrorist? Especially when you're bombing places where there's innocent civilians. You're going around raping villages. You know, raping their children, raping little boys and girls. How could you not tell me those are terrorists, man? All around the world, you're terrorizing people. All right. But yet you don't have the white identity extremist label. I wonder why is that? But yet so-called black people are the problem.
We got pink dick devils going once, going twice. What do you have?
PDD.
PDD.
Okay. Uh-oh, here they come.
Somebody say white extremists, Edomites.
The heathens.
Minimalism.
These are Edomites, which is, you know, it's Edomites, you know, but hey, yeah, that's what he is. Okay, that's exactly what he is, and Jake need to call them by what they are, man, and quit playing into the social construct that he created for himself for his own benefit. All right, he earned the bywords. All right, and the scriptures tell you that the curses that are upon us which led to us being called, you know, these different derogatory names, these names of insults, is actually going to come upon our enemies. So let's read this in Deuteronomy. This is Deuteronomy 30 and verse 7. It says, "And the Lord thy power will put all these curses upon thine enemies and on them that hate thee, which persecuted thee." And that's what we're seeing happening now as we speak. That's why they're having a low birth rate. All right, a lot of more of them are dying than being born. Okay, their women are coming against them, crying rape, getting them, you know, lynched and shit. Not literally, but you know, getting their characters lynched. Okay, there's a lot of dysfunction going on through the Edomite families, especially the ones that are middle to lower class. The ones that are living like the average Jake, they going through it, man. Okay, they're running out of government aid benefits, you know, because there's more of them than Jake that's on welfare. That's a fact. Okay, they're overdosing off the opioids and the heroin. You know, they're depressed. The jobs are getting scarce. The economy is falling hard right now. All right, they're in the middle of a civil war between these political parties, man. These liberals and these conservatives, the left, the white, the rights, the Republicans, the Democrats, like they all are jacked up right now, man. You starting to see a wave of Edomite crime at this point. There's more Edomites attacking other Edomites than there's Jake. So hey, it's that time, man. It's definitely that time. These curses are damn sure getting on these devils, man. And now, hey, part of that curse is to be called by a byword in a proverb, man. Deuteronomy 28 and 37. It says, "And thou shalt become an astonishment, a proverb, and a byword among all nations, whither the Lord shall lead thee." All right, and a byword is basically like an insult. Like it's an insult to call us black, because when you look up the definition for the term black, it's nothing but derogatory, negative meaning. It has a negative connotation to it, man. Nothing to embrace, nothing really positive. But Jake like to turn negativity into something that is not and try to embrace it. You know, calling each other, you know, black and Negro. These are names you inherited in slavery. No, you're an Israelite. You're a prince of the power. It's time to start calling you by what you really are, man. A prince of the power. That's what the word Israel means. Yasha Allah. He is a son of God or a prince of the power, man. A name associated with power and royalty. Okay? Not no nigga, not no African, American. Two names that came from two so-called Edomite, not so-called because that's what they are. They call themselves white, so-called white colonizers. They colonized Africa and they colonized America. They put their names on it. But no, they under the curse now, man. It's time to call them exactly what they are, man. All right, that's the curse. And really, and like I said, this is all, you know, these names that we giving them. It's actually all earned. It's justified. Those names actually fit them. Okay, we ain't calling them out of, you know, what they are, because that's what they're. It's what they do. They are colonizers. They are terrorists. All right, a bunch of thieves.
No.
Hey, and for a long time, these pale red, pasty ass devils, you know, for a long time they've, even though they're inferior to us, even though they told us that they were superior and we were inferior, but yet this is what the scriptures say. This is Job 30 and 1. It says, "But now they that are younger than I have me in derision." All right, these man, they walk around with that attitude, just knowing. Man, I'm better than these niggers out here, man. They insult your intelligence. They believe you got the lowest IQ. Are you the most ignorant? You're only good for for strength. To dribble a basketball, throw a football, dance. They don't think you're greater than entertainment, man. But these people, the scriptures telling you that they're more insignificant than you. When you look up this word younger, right here, because Job he's talking about Esau. He's prophesying about these Edomites. All right, and you got niggas, dumb niggas, that try to say that Job is an Edomite himself. Why would he say that? Talking about Edomites, man. All right, it's you get the word younger. It's from the Hebrew word tazayar, right? Now it means young in the sense of being young like a little one, but it also means to be insignificant. All right, insignificant. Now let's look up the word insignificant. So it has negative and positive connotation to it. All right, insignificant. It says too small or unimportant to be worth consideration. All right, and that's Esau. Okay, Esau, he's a nobody, man. Okay, there's a reason why he's the natural so-called culture vulture, man. He got to steal everything, even cultures, man. He identified with everybody's cultures and nationalities, hiding from his own identity, man. That's a person that he is just not. He's very small, man. He's very insignificant. All right. The scriptures call him he's a base man. He's low, very low. But yet this same motherfucker got us in derision, man. He can insult us. All right. He's in a position of power to oppress you. He has a head start society where he can join the wealth pool. All right, a lot quicker and faster than a so-called Negro, Latino, Native American can. All right, but that's because the Lord did that. When you read Daniel, the 4th chapter, it says that the Lord, he rules in the kingdom of men and set up over it the basis of men. All right, so that this low life is actually on top because the Lord put him on top. And what comes with being on top, you're gonna have all these different flattering titles to yourself. You're gonna call yourself a white supremacist and white power. Okay, you're gonna try to take things from other nations and take credit for it for yourself just because you have the power to do it. Take ideas. A lot of inventions were created by other people, but he takes the credit for it. Well, he has the power to rewrite history. Okay, so he had the power to cover up the fact that he really had nothing going for himself. So he made it to where people that had it going on before him, he'll lie and say that he was those people. Like Europe was. He'll make it seem like Europe was always his. He civilized the world, but he'll never tell you about the medieval times, the Dark Ages, when our people were ruling all throughout the known world for a period of 1,000 years. He always kept that hidden. But now that the truth is coming out, he can't hide it no more. All right. But anyway, let me read this. It says, "But now they that are younger than I have me in derision, whose fathers I would have disdained to set with the dogs of my flock." And we all know why you can't have dogs around these devils, man. Look what they do with these animals. All right. You know what the so-called white man and white woman is known for doing with these animals, especially dogs. That's why Job said that. It says, Yeah, word too, might the strength of their hands profit me, in whom old age was perished? For want and famine they were solitary, fleeing into the wilderness in former time desolate and waste, who cut up mallows by the bushes and juniper roots for their meat. They were driven forth from among men, they cried after them as after a thief, to dwell in the cliffs of the valleys and caves of the earth. That's why we call them Caucasians, because Caucasian just means cave dweller. All right, they're the original cave dwellers, man. That's another title you can call them, man. Go back to calling them cavemen, or they already call themselves Caucasians, so they're calling themselves cave dwellers, man. That's exactly what they are, showing you that these are Edomites. The habitation of the Edomites was Mount Seir, which was the caves, all right, the clefts and the rocks. All right, it says, and in the rocks among the bushes they brayed, under the nettles they were gathered together. They were children of fools, yeah, children of base men. They were viler than the earth. And now I am their song. Yeah, I am their byword. Okay. Now these same people who had a history of being low level creatures, living in the caves, living dusty and dirty and slimy. Now they're in a position of power to deride us now and call us out our names, totally disrespect us, man. All right, and elevate themselves over us. Them motherfuckers are not superior, man. Remember, this is in Genesis 25 and 25. When Jacob and Esau were born, it says, Slakia, Genesis 25 and 23, it says, and the Lord said unto her, to Rebekah, two nations are in thy womb, and two manner of people shall be separated from their bowels, and one people shall be stronger than the other people. That means what? This one person is going to be superior than the other, and the elder shall serve the younger. The one that's stronger is talking about Jacob. He was going to be the stronger of the two. And it plays out even to this very day. It is no question who's stronger out of the so-called Negro, Latino, and Native American versus the so-called white man. All right, all the adversity and pain and everything, the misery that we done suffered and endured. Esau, within a day or two of all the things that we done went through under the hands of this devil and all these other nations, Esau would not last. He would not last, man. He's already trying to kill himself. He's hit with just a little pressure, and all of a sudden, he's on panic mode. Everybody's attacking us. We're being victimized all over the world. It's just an ongoing slaughter attacks on white people. We can't take this. This is racist. You know? You can't handle the adversity, man. You can't handle when the shoe is on your foot. You know, now you want to put it back in everybody else's face. No, man, you did that to yourself, man. All right? And now it's time to address what you've done, what you're still doing, and what needs to be done. All right? Your judgment, man. All right? So I'm going to play a little bit of this, and then I'm going to close out.
Colonizers.
Degenerates, white insanity, cave dwellers, bigots.
These are all your titles now, Esau. These are all the things that you can really justify calling you. All right? You earned it.
Plane jumpers.
I wish they were calling it.
Pondexter D.
I'm saying
Savages.
one
The
of
beasts.
the dudes who put their ass out there the best is my man Tariq Nasheed.
Yeah.
I feel like Tariq Nasheed is his information is so powerful. People go off what he say. So I would say to Tariq, brother, let's rethink this on how we describe them, because what you do, people are gonna listen to. Now, I'm just saying, we giving them credit by calling them supreme, white supremacist. No, never again on my end. I ain't calling them white supremacists no more. They are cave dwellers. They are I call it wicked Caucasian leadership in America. That's what I really call it. We must stop wicked Caucasian leadership.
Right.
Because if they're in charge, then everybody else is falling under.
And
that's right, man. All right. The world is mourning because he's in power. The world is out of order, and of course because he's in power. All right. So you don't call something like that the supreme of anything. All right. So let me leave off with a scripture. Jeremiah 49. Leave off with a script. Jeremiah 49 and verse 10. It says, "But I have made Esau bare and have uncovered his secret places, and he shall not be able to hide himself." All right. Hey, your shame is pouring out right now, man. Okay. Everybody agree that you're the problem of the earth, man. Okay. His seed is spoiled and his brethren and his neighbors, and he is not. Okay. "Leave thy fatherless children, I will preserve them alive, and let thy widows trust in me. For thus saith the Lord, behold, they whose judgment was not to drink of the cup have assuredly drunken," talking about Israel. "And art thou he, thou shalt altogether go unpunished? Thou shalt not go unpunished, but thou shalt surely drink of it." And guess what? That you're going to drink the cup of everything that you've done against the nation of Israel. You're going to drink the cup of slavery. You're going to drink down the curses that are being placed upon you. You're gonna live 1,000 years of total hell. All right, and then after that, you're done. All right. So anyway, I'm gonna end it with that. Hopefully this was edifying. I want to give all praise to Yahweh Shem Yahushua. Until next time, Shalom.
Our policy is not regime change, but we do expect substantial change in their behavior. That's why the President has directed all of us in the government to come up with steps to reimpose the economic sanctions and to do whatever else is necessary to ensure we bring maximum pressure on the regime to stop its malign behavior across the board.
The United States is pulling out of a treaty that it signed with Iran in 1955. The decision is in response to the International Court of Justice ordering the United States on Wednesday to lift sanctions on Iran involving medicine, food, and airplane parts. VOA's White House Bureau Chief Steve Herman says the Treaty of Amity had established economic relations and consular rights between the United States and Iran.
The unilateral withdrawal by the United States is the latest indication of escalating tensions between Washington and Tehran. National Security Advisor John Bolton says U.S. policy is not regime change in Iran, but it does expect substantial change in Tehran's behavior.
Our dispute is with the Ayatollahs who have taken Iran from a respected position in the international community to being a rogue state. Our dispute has never been with the people of Iran.
President Donald Trump, according to Bolton, after reimposing sanctions on Tehran, also will do whatever else is necessary to ensure we bring maximum pressure to stop its malign behavior across the board. Iran had complained to the UN court the move by Washington to reimpose sanctions that had been lifted under the 2015 International Nuclear Agreement
from a respected position in the international community to being a rogue state. Our dispute has never been with the people of Iran. We only wish they had the ability to control their own government.
And then on the interest section, sorry?
No, it won't have any effect on that, sir.
Mr. Ambassador, canceling those two treaties, I'm trying to figure out what are the open paths for potential talks do you still have with Iran and actually the Palestinians?
Well, this is really has less to do with Iran and the Palestinians than with the continued consistent policy of the United States to reject the jurisdiction of the International Court of Justice, which we think is politicized and ineffective. It relates obviously in part to our views on the International Criminal Court and to the nature of so-called purported international courts to be able to bind the United States.
Sir. It's closing doors in the end. You won't be able to use.
It's closing doors that shouldn't be open to politicized abuse, which is what we've consistently seen in the ICJ. John?
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Ambassador. As you know, yesterday the French government denounced the Iranian government for a terror plot in Paris against the National Council of Iranian Resistance, a leading group opposing the Ayatollahs. You're aware of that? Was that a factor in any of the decisions that you've made withdrawing from these two protocols?
No, these decisions were made before we were aware of the French decision, but I have to say what the French have done is exactly the right thing. They arrested, and other European governments arrested, accredited Iranian diplomats for conspiracy to conduct this attempted assault on the rally in Paris. So that tells you, I think, everything you need to know about how the government of Iran views its responsibilities in connection with diplomatic relations, and I hope it's a wake-up call across Europe to the nature of the regime and the threat that they pose. Ma'am.
Are these actions ramping up tensions between the United States and Iran? And what is our intelligence when it comes to their systems, their nuclear weapons, etc., at this moment?
Well, I'm not going to get into what our intelligence states, but the issue is protecting the United States against the politicized use of these international institutions. As I've said, this goes back now close to over 30 years, really, in connection with U.S. policy of rejecting jurisdiction of these courts. And it's a continuation, I think, in the interest of the American people.
So does this further divide any kind of attempt to try to come together on what was prior to trying to work with them in closing?
They're bringing a lawsuit against us in the ICJ. Has nothing whatever to do to a diplomatic effort to resolve our differences. It was a politicized use of the court that exacerbated the differences. Ma'am.
Can you respond to the Iranian foreign minister saying that the U.S. is driven by regime change? How do you
I'll say it again, maybe he'll listen this time. Our policy is not regime change, but we do expect substantial change in their behavior. That's why the President has directed all of us in the government to come up with steps to reimpose the economic sanctions and to do whatever else is necessary to ensure we bring maximum pressure on the regime to stop its malign behavior across the board, not just in the nuclear field, but across the board.
And given that the EU and other partners are still a part of the nuclear deal, does it make the United States efforts to try to force Iran to abandon or at least try to dismantle its nuclear program any weaker? In other words, how much leverage do you have at this point?
Well, I don't think Iran is dismantling its nuclear program. If anything, recent reports that are public indicate that it's increasing its activity.
How do you convince them if you don't have the EU and other partners on board?
Well, I think we're going to apply the maximum amount of leverage we can. We're working with our European partners, with the British, the French, the Germans, and others. They have chosen to remain in the Iran nuclear deal. But as I've said to them, it's like a book that was written several decades ago in this country. It was called something like The 6 Stages of Grief. You know, first you have denial, then you have anger. Eventually you get to acceptance. And I think that's the direction the Europeans are moving in. I can tell you European companies in droves are forswearing business opportunities in Iran because they don't want to be caught up in the pressure campaign that we're applying.
Thank you, Mr. Ambassador. You just addressed Palestine and said it is a so-called state. Is that language productive in achieving the president's?
Accurate.
So, but the president recommitted to the president in New York City, as you know, recommitted his goal to achieving a two-state solution.
That's right.
So, is using that sort of language productive in his goal?
Yeah, sure, of course. It's not a state now. It does not meet the customary international law test of statehood. It doesn't control defined boundaries. It doesn't fulfill the normal functions of government. There are a whole host of reasons why it's not a state. It could become a state, as the president said, but that requires diplomatic negotiations with Israel and others. So calling it the so-called State of Palestine defines exactly what it has been, a position that the United States government has pursued uniformly since 1988, when the Palestinian Authority declared itself to be the State of Palestine. We don't recognize it as the State of Palestine. We have consistently, across Democratic and Republican administrations, opposed the admission of Palestine to the United Nations as a state because it's not a state. Sir.
Yes, sir. The IAEA is saying it doesn't take at face value Netanyahu's claims that Iran's harboring a secret atomic warehouse. Do you agree with the Israeli Prime Minister that there should be an inspection? And what's your reaction to Amano's comments on this?
Well, I haven't seen those comments. I will say our intelligence community has been reviewing the material that Israel extracted from Iran and going over it in quite some detail. I must say it's extremely impressive. And we've been very supportive of the Israeli effort and supportive of the IAEA taking new steps to follow up on it. The Senate just confirmed a few days ago Ambassador Jackie Wolcott, who will be taking up her new position as U.S. Ambassador to the UN agencies in Vienna, specifically the International Atomic Energy Agency, and she'll be on the job shortly making our case there. Sir.
Thank you, sir. When the president came out in support of a two-state solution at the UN last week, Prime Minister Netanyahu responded that he's confident Israel would retain security control of the West Bank under any White House plan. Is that correct, or are you open to a Palestinian state with no security presence from Israel inside their borders?
We've been working, as you well know, on a peace plan involving Israel and the Palestinians. We'll be rolling it out in due course when we decide it's the most appropriate time to do it, and I'm sure that will answer your question then. And I see the lady with the hook over here, so.
Take one last question.
So yeah, I'm sorry. I actually did try and recognize this gentleman. I guess I didn't point accurately enough, so my apologies.
Thank you, Mr. Ambassador. Former Secretary of State John Kerry said yesterday he has not met with the Iranians since the U.S. pulled out of the deal, but he has met with them on several occasions before. Do you think he violated the Logan Act by doing so, and was he subverting the policy of the United States?
Well, I think Secretary Pompeo addressed that previously, and I'll stick with his remarks. Thank you very much.
Shalom Akyam, Kal Halal, Yahweh Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai Ba'ashem, Rakah Kodash. Double honor to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Much peace, love, and salutation to you brothers out there pushing the word sincerity and truth. This is Brother Ariala, and this sit down, I'm going to call it Yahweh Shai is looking for friends, not fanboys. Yahweh Shai is looking for friends, not fanboys. And I'm doing this sit down. It's kind of an extension of something that we was talking about on the highways and the byways for the last couple of weekends. And I wanted to put it on wax in a sit down form. And Lord willing, all you Akyam can add on to it, do response videos to it, because I feel like it's a message that needs to go out, especially in these times that we in. And that's the idea that you can just kind of sit back, chill, watch, praise men for doing the work, cheer things on, and still kind of carry that expectation within yourself that you gonna carry that W. And I know, brothers like to say, oh, there's friends of the prophets, there's friends of the prophets. Yeah, there's friends of the prophets, but the intention of the ministry is to call out those who are going to come and dedicate themselves to the confession of this word. Yahweh Shai was looking for friends, not fanboys. He was looking for people that were determined to give glory unto Yahweh B'Shem Yahweh Shai and go out to the people and speak it. And over and over and over again, you saw Yahweh Shai speak on these things, and that's why you see the parables and the gospels of work being done, the highways and the byways, the talents, the 10 virgins. All these things were concerning people that were friends, not fanboys. And so this is something that as an exhortation to young men that may be watching these videos, men that go out and just kind of stand on the other side, and you're just there. People that are just kind of just watching in the wings. They agree, but they haven't been moved to any type of action. This is a warning to you that the intention of the Most High with these words is to quicken you, is to move you. And I want to go through some scriptures and highlight that point, and Lord willing, this is edifying. I'm going to start in the book of Matthew chapter 9. We're going to start at verse 35. It says, and Yahushua went about all the cities and villages, teaching in their synagogues and preaching the gospel of the kingdom, and healing every sickness and every disease among the people. But when he saw the multitudes, he was moved with compassion on them, because they fainted and were scattered abroad as sheep having no shepherd. He saw the people in a sad case. Okay? It says, then saith he unto his disciple, the harvest truly is plenteous, but the laborers are few. Pray ye therefore the Lord of the harvest, that he will send forth laborers in his harvest. See, Yahushua here was saying, look, man, we need to be looking for people that are going to go and gather these scattered sheep, gather these broken and fainted people that are abroad. And we've been commissioned through the Spirit to take on that task, to go out on the highways and the byways, to go on the internet highways and byways and heal the sick and every other disease of the mind and spirit, to go and preach this gospel of the kingdom so the 144 elect can be assembled. That is the mission. That is the purpose of what we're doing. It's not just for some feel-good thing. It's not just to make you feel better about the kingdom that you've been relegated to in slavery and captivity. No, this is for the reaching and for the rising up of the 144 elect. All right, for the purpose of prophecy to be fulfilled. Okay, so you need to have that intention. This is why we're preaching. This is what Yahushua was looking for. Okay, I want to go to the next scripture. It's the book of John 21:15, one we go over all the time. John 21:15 says, so when they had dined, Yahushua saith to Simon Peter, Simon, son of Jonas, lovest thou me more than these? He said unto him, yea, Lord, thou knowest that I love thee. He said unto him, feed my lambs. He said unto him again the second time, Simon, son of Jonas, love thou me? He said unto him, yea, Lord, thou knowest I love thee. He said unto him, feed my sheep. He said unto him the third time, Simon, son of Jonas, lovest thou me? Peter was grieved because he said unto him the third time, lovest thou me? And he said unto him, Lord, thou knowest all things. Thou knowest that I love thee. Yahushua said unto him, feed my sheep. Okay, so the Most High is basically exhorting Peter here in this passage to go out there and do the work of taking care of the sheep. Go out there and pastor unto the sheep. How do we do that? By the ministering of this word. What does the word minister mean? Brothers, look it up. It means to serve. And that's what we're going out there doing, man. We're going out there and feeding the sheep, the lost, scattered sheep of the 12 tribes of Israel, raising them back up into the rightful mind so that we can call on the glory of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua to come back on the planet Earth, man. We're searching for a more immortality to be brought on the planet Earth, the kingdom of heaven, right? Feed the sheep. The Most High is looking for friends, not fanboys, not people that are just, go Yahushua, go Yahushua, go. GMS, yeah, man, get them, GMS, get them. You get them too. Get up. Are you not quickened? Are you not vitalized by the word that's coming out? Is this not moving you to confess more than at the barbershop? Okay? More than in between classes when you're going to school. More than an argument with your auntie on Christmas. All right? a discipleship, a disciplineness of teaching this word day by day, enduring unto the end, until Yahushua cracks those clouds, as the brothers like to say. Okay? This is the book of Matthew, the 28th chapter. And the 18th verse, it says, And Yahushua came and spake unto them, saying, All power is given unto me in heaven and in earth. Go ye therefore and teach all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe all things whatsoever I commanded you. And lo, I am with you always, even until the end of the world. Amen. Do you believe that? If you do, you should feel like he's speaking directly to you. This is why these words were written. It was written by inspiration. It was written to inspire you. It was written to move the elect into action. Okay? And and if you don't have that in you, hey man, that's a problem. That's a problem, man. Okay? That's a problem. Or you a fanboy, or you a friend, or you are somebody that's committed to keeping these works and being down in the spirit to go out and confess and push this word, or you just here to observe and watch. You see, the fans don't get the championship ring at the end of the day. Okay? They don't get the trophy. They don't get to the bonuses that come with the championship. They don't get the recognition. The fans is just the fans in the stands. Okay? Most High's looking for somebody that's ready to move. Looking for leaders. The 144,000. After those men are assembled, then you read the prophecies talking about actions that start happening on the planet Earth, man. Okay? I want to read this in the book of Revelation, the 14th chapter. In the 3rd verse, it says, And they sung, as it were, a new song before the throne. This is talking about the 144,000. They sung, as it were, a new song before the throne and before the 4 beasts and the elders, and no man could learn that song but the 144,000, exclusive, right? Which were redeemed from the earth. These are they which are not defiled with women, for they are virgins. These are they which follow the Lamb, whithersoever he goeth. These were redeemed from among men, being the first fruits unto the Most High and to the Lamb. And in their mouth was found no guile, for they were without fault before the throne. Obedience plus grace equals perfection. All right? And so we're called into that grace, man. But you got to do something. You can't just stand there and stare. If you hear and watching these videos and you have able body and mind, and you receiving these words and you writing it down and you taking notes and you learning and you know and you get it in the doctrine, you should be moved to action. You should be looking to contact or find out the closest camp nearest to you and fall in line in order. You should be looking to get your penny, to get to work to receive your penny. But if you don't ever get to work, why do you expect to receive a penny? We ain't looking for a pat on the back. We don't need no fans. Most High is looking for people who are ready to get down and dirty. Get this work in. Okay? A call to action. That's what these scriptures should invoke you to do. It should quicken you, cause you to move. This is the book of John, the 15th chapter. In the 12th verse, it says, This is my commandment, that ye love one another as I loved you. Greater love have no man than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends. See, that's why the scriptures talk about this being a sacrifice, that we present our bodies a living sacrifice. What's that in the book of Romans 12? Romans chapter 12, verse 1. I beseech you therefore, brethren, by the mercies of the Most High, that ye present your bodies a living sacrifice, holy, acceptable unto the Most High, which is your reasonable service. All right? Our reasonable service. Then it starts talking about the gifts of the Spirit. Prophecy, according to the portion of faith. Ministry, teaching, exhorting. Okay? That's how you present your body as a living sacrifice. All right? This is how you laying your life down, man. You're going out there and you're becoming a martyr, or you're willing to become a martyr for the sake of confessing the truth. This world is going to hate you for confessing this truth. People are not going to like you for the sake of confessing this truth. People are going to come against you. But that's the love that you're showing for your friends. Okay? Now here in John 15 and 14 it says, ye are my friends, if ye do whatsoever I command you. If you do whatever I command you. Feed my sheep. Peter, feed my sheep. That was one of the things he said. Right? He said, go, Matthew 28, he says, go teach all nations. Do what I command you. When you do these things, you become the Lord's friend. And what happens with that? Whenever you become the Lord's friend, what do friends do? Friends pass secrets to each other. All right? Friends tell each other the most intimate things. This is when the Most High will sup with you in the spirit, when you dedicate yourself into sacrifice and making your body a living sacrifice, and you come into this ministry. But if you're a fanboy, there's deeper secrets that you ain't gonna receive. You can read the scripture all day. You see, there's another thing. You got people say, I've been in the truth for 5 years, but you ain't never touched foot on the highways and byways to preach. You don't count yourself in this truth until you get out there and commit yourself to the ministry. You ain't been in the truth yet until you really take that step. You ain't really became a friend until you're willing to do those things that Yahushua commanded. And that chief thing is to go out there and preach. Okay? Up until that point, you're just a fan. Just a fanboy. There's the difference. And this is right. I'm exhorting the men right now. The men that are listening. This is the verse 15 in John the 15th chapter. It says, henceforth I call you not servants, for the servant knoweth not what the Lord doeth. But I have called you friends, for all things that I have heard of my Father I have made known to you. See, friends share deeper, more intimate information. And that's something that's communicated through the Spirit. Okay? Ye have not chosen me, but I have chosen you and ordained you that you should go and bring forth fruit, and that your fruit should remain, that whatsoever ye shall ask of my Father in my name, he may give you. And if the Spirit is guiding you, you're going to ask for spiritual things. You're going to ask for immortal things. You're going to ask for the necessary tools that you need in order to progress and achieve the kingdom of heaven. I want to get this word ordained. I just want to see what it says in the Greek, because I'm interested. If you're in IUIC, you want to cut this out right now. Get over it.
Strong's G 5087. Tithemi.
Tithemi, ordained to set up, put, or place. Okay, I like that. Let's put down, to bend down. Go to subsection C, says to set on something to eat, like to serve something. D, to set forth something to be explained by discourse, to establish, to fix, ordain. Okay, so the Most High has ordained those people that he's chosen from the foundation of the earth to go and bring forth fruit. What's the fruit? The 144,000, man. Self-duplication, so to speak. Yahushua is duplicating himself in us. That's how we become joint heirs. All right? By the sacrifice, by the spilling of their blood, it was an opening for us to receive that spirit, that life. And we are to take in that energy, in that life, and pass it on to those that are ordained from the foundation of the earth. That's our duty. That's our job. That's what you're commissioned to do once you receive this information and you understand it and you believe it and it's sealed up in your mind and in your heart. Okay? But you know what comes with that. Okay? The world is going to hate you. As you read down here in the book of John, the 15th chapter, Yahushua continues on that. But I want to link on the fact that he becomes your friend if you do his will. All right? All right. Proverbs 27:10 says, "Thine own friend and thy father's friend forsake not. Neither go into thy brother's house in the day of thy calamity, for better is a neighbor that is near than a brother far off." Man, make yourself near unto Yahweh Shem Yahushua. Do the work. Commit yourself. Make a decision. Don't be double-minded. At least you find yourself in bad case. We are coming into the time where the doors of procrastination are going to be locked, sealed, and shut. And people who are not going to be able to pass on through to receive this glorious knowledge, man. Okay? Procrastination is going to shut those doors like that ark going up, though. The people that was procrastinating got left out there for the waters to receive them. You don't want to be left out here for the fire to take on you for your hesitation and procrastination because your knees was trembling. You were fearful. You was second guessing. You was making excuses. You was blaming other people. You saying, "Oh well, I don't like." Well, you know, Apostle Ricard, he had wore a biker jacket, so I don't know if I can go preach the word. Yahweh Shai is looking at you like you a whole ass nigga. "Oh, I didn't like the way Apostle Hart had said that. He made me feel sad." Yahweh Shai looking at you. Boy, you a whole ass nigga. Whatever other excuses that you guys or people want to create for not going out there pushing this word, but you on the comment board, man, I love y'all brothers, man. Akiums. Look, you better stop procrastinating. You're not sitting as a friend when you're not doing the will. You're just a fanboy. You're just on the outside looking. Okay? This is the book of Sirach, the 37th chapter. I'm going to read a few verses here and there. First verse says, "Every friend saith, I am his friend also. But there is a friend which is only a friend in name." Okay? There's a friend that's only a friend in name. Is that you? We don't want to be like that. We want to be a friend indeed in our actions and what we do, how we live. Right? Verse 4 says, "There's a companion which rejoiceth in the prosperity of a friend, but in the time of trouble will be against him." See, that's a guy that's not rooted. "There's a companion which helpeth his friend for the belly, and taketh up the buckler against his enemy. Forget not thy friend in thy mind, and be not unmindful of him in thy riches." Right? Work for this thing. Be a good friend. Increase. Add to the body. Add to the ministry. If you believe in this thing, increase. Increase within it. Okay? Increase within it. Don't be a double-minded man. You're going to find yourself in a bad place in that time. Okay? This is Sirach chapter 6, verse 14. It says, a faithful friend is a strong defense, and he that hath found such an one hath found a treasure. Nothing doth countervail a faithful friend, and his excellency is invaluable. A faithful friend is a medicine of life, and they that fear the Lord shall find him. Okay? Whoso feareth the Lord shall direct his friendship aright, for as he is, so shall his neighbor be also. That true iron and sharpening iron day by day. Okay? But this is the question of today. Are you a friend, or are you just a fanboy? Where you sit at? Be mindful. We're in the time of getting to work. We're in the time of taking risks. This is the ultimate risk taking. Right? Laying your body down as a sacrifice for the sake of this ministry. Okay? Now I want to read this. This is something that you hear, and for all you IUIC members that like to sneak and watch our videos because you learn. I want you to listen to this because I'm going to make a point, and this is something that we've done sit-downs on. But when we talk about the works, we're not talking about how nice your fringes are. We're not talking about how tender your lamb dinner was. We're not talking about those things. We're talking about the preaching of this word, the prophesying, going out there and casting out nets, feeding the sheep. Feeding the sheep ain't just, my brother, you gotta wear your fringes, my brother. No, man, it's teaching about the Lord and salvation to the nation. Salvation to the nation of Israel is not the commandments. It's the sacrifice through Yahushua. It's that order of Melchizedek being raised up. It's all the fulfillment of those prophecies that are quickening the 144,000. Okay, this is the book of James, the 2nd chapter and the 14th verse. It says, "What doth it profit, my brethren, though a man say he have faith and have not works? Can faith save him? If a brother or sister be naked and destitute of daily food, and one will say unto him, Depart in peace, be ye warmed and filled, notwithstanding ye give them not those things which are needful to the body, what doth it profit? Even so," you see how he's likening that to something? He's not saying that that's the works. He's saying you can't just say it and not do something about it. You can't say you believe in Yahweh Bashim Yahushua, but you ain't out there preaching and teaching and raising people up in that name and in that energy and in that spirit. The ministry is the work. The confession is the key. That's what was putting the apostles and the disciples in danger. Keeping the commandments wasn't putting them in danger. They were being threatened with death because of what they were preaching. They were keeping the commandments. It was the prophecies and the teaching of the word that put them in danger. Understand this. Stop being simple. Think. Okay? Verse 18 says, "Yea, a man may say thou hast faith, and I have works. Show me thy faith without thy works, and I will show thee my faith by my works. Thou believest that there is one power, thou dost well. The devils also believe and tremble. But wilt thou know, O vain man, that faith without works is dead?" Okay? Or you a friend or you a fanboy? Where do you sit in the course and in the journey of this ministry? When you read the scriptures, the Lord was looking for those who will raise themselves up and then go out there and preach. Not people that's just listening. He was giving the special knowledge to those that dedicated themselves unto the ministry, to the servitude, to the preaching of the word. Okay? Now check this out. It says, "Was not Abraham our father justified by works when he offered Isaac his son upon the altar? Seest thou how faith wrought his work with his works, and by works was faith made perfect? The scripture was fulfilled, which said, Abraham believed the Most High, and it was imputed unto him for righteousness, and he was called the friend of the Most High." Are you a friend? Or you just a fanboy? Where do you stand? Call halal Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushua Ba'Shem Makakadash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone. Much peace, love, and salutations to you brothers out there pushing the word in sincerity and truth. Prophecy. Let's go, champ. Shalom.
Barak the Yahweh, Barak the Yahweh Shai. Barak the Yahweh, Barak the Yahweh Shai, Barak the Yahweh, Barak the Yahweh Shai. All praise unto Yahweh Shem Yahushai Wahara Kakadash. Double honors unto the apostles of Great Millstone. Honestly, brothers, to be pushing this truth in sincerity throughout the four corners of the earth. This is going to be a quick video, maybe 2-3 minutes, maybe a little bit more. Basically going into a precept proving that the so-called Jews that you have within the land of Israel right now, those are not the people of the Lord, just by simple prophecy. Okay, and this is a basic prophecy within the book of Ezekiel, the 36th chapter. All right, and you know, it's basic, but there's a lot said within these basic scriptures. Okay, so this is the book of Ezekiel 36 and 34. It says, and the desolate land shall be tilled. Sorry, let me go up so you get the context. Okay, if we go to the well, I'm having to go up. Okay, so let's start here in the 22nd verse, right? It says, therefore, thus say unto the house of Israel, thus saith the Lord, power, I do this not for your sakes, O house of Israel, but for my holy name's sake, which ye have profaned amongst the heathens, whither ye have went. All right, so when you go into the book of Deuteronomy, the 28th chapter and the 64th verse, you find out that the Lord scattered the 12 tribes of Israel around the whole world. Okay, and you go to the book of Amos 9 and 9 and so on and so forth. Right, I'll follow, I will command, I'll sift the house of Israel from among all nations like corn sifted in the sieve. This is what this scripture is talking about, the 22nd verse here, where the Lord is going to gather the elect of the 12 tribes of Israel, which are going to come looking in all shapes and forms. Right, you're going to have some that are going to look like Edomites, you're going to have some that are going to look like Hamites, some, and so on and so forth. Some are going to look like Israelites, and so on and so forth. All right, but the fact of the matter is the Lord was going to gather the 12 tribes of Israel from the 12, the four corners of the earth. All right, I will sanctify my name, which the Lord bestowed upon the 12 tribes of Israel. He, the prince with the power, Yasharallah. Okay, which ye have was profaned amongst the heathen, which ye have profaned in the midst of them. Because when the scripture says within the book of Deuteronomy, the 28th chapter and the 68th verse, when we was amongst these different nations, we was going to be into all kind of folly, and that's what happened. All right, among the heathen which ye have profaned in the midst of them, and the heathen shall know that I am Yahweh, right? Saith the Lord. And this is because the Lord's name is going to be magnified. All right, when the 12 tribes of Israel enter back into their land, this is another proof that these Jews ain't the people of the Lord. Okay, because if they were the people of the Lord, everybody would be into what? The scriptures. The scripture within the book of Isaiah comes to mind, where the scripture says that what? That when the Israelites get the real Israelites get their identities manifested before the people, where the nations was going to minister unto them. They was going to bring like the scripture says, the forces of the Gentiles was going to be given unto us. Okay, the real Israelites. For I will take you from among the heathen and gather you from all countries and bring you into your own land. Right? So you might think, oh, that's the Balfour Declaration. Well, this is going to be proof that this hasn't happened yet. Okay. Then will I sprinkle you clean. Then will I sprinkle clean water upon you, and ye shall be clean from all your filthiness, and from all your idols will I cleanse you. Of which, when you're talking about the idols, you're talking about the idol of Jesus Christ. All right, that's the idol within the world, which goes back to Serapis Christus. All right, Buddha. Okay, Allah. Those are idols, man. Okay, here at Great Millstone, we're pushing what? We're pushing the God of the Bible. All right, the God of Jacob, which was Yahweh. Okay, the scriptures clearly show you that, and his son's name was Yahweh Shai, which is the same name that was given unto Joshua. So because what? Joshua means he the deliverer. Okay, so Joshua had pretty much the same name as Yahweh Shai. Okay, he the deliverer. Okay, but his name is not Jesus. That's Greek. All right. So it says there, a new heart also will I give unto you. The book of Hebrews 8 and 8 comes to mind, and the new spirit will I put within you, and I'll take away the stony heart out of your flesh, and I'll give you a heart of flesh. All right. So we're gonna be born doing righteousness, and I'll put my spirit within you and cause you to walk within my statutes, and you shall call my judgments and do them, and ye shall dwell within the land that I gave to your fathers. And ye shall be my people, and I'll be your power. All right. So the Lord was gonna, like I said before, was gonna bring us from wherever we was gonna be, and we was gonna be one with the Most High. I'll also save you from all your uncleanness, and I will call for the corn and will increase it and lay no famine upon you. And I'll multiply fruit. Okay, I'll multiply the fruit of the tree. All right. So when you go out there within the land of Israel, okay, the Israelis right now, which are really the Amalekites that are living within the land of Israel right now, they're not increased within the field. Okay, you might say, oh no, that's allegorical. Okay, that's metaphorical for the financial increase that they've been given. Well, guess what? They've stolen all of that so-called financial increase. When you check out these so-called Jews and how they got their money, they got their money by way of thievery, okay, deceit, okay, and lies. All right, going back onto the Rothschilds family, which were what? They was loan sharks, okay, and them loan sharks, pretty much what they figured out is people didn't care about the actual money because they was trading IOUs, and that's how they created this whole banking system that you have out here right now, which does nothing but steal money from the world. And in fact, when you check out all the wars, all the wars that have been on the world, that are playing out within the world, there's a thing called all wars are bankers' wars, okay, and all of those bankers are what? So-called Jews, okay? But when you check out what really the scripture is saying here, that he's going to multiply us with fruit and trees, man, Jerusalem is going to be a beautiful place, man. Okay, it's going to be beautiful because why? Because the Lord was going to multiply us with apples, cherries, mangoes, whatever, man. Okay, all of that. All right, and I'll increase the field, and ye shall receive no more reproach or famine amongst the heathen. Then ye shall remember your own evil ways and your doings that were not good, and ye shall loathe yourselves in the sight of your iniquities, okay, and for your abominations. Not for your sakes do I do this, saith the Lord Yahweh Hashem Yahshua. Be it known unto you, be ashamed and confounded for your own ways, O house of Israel. Thou saith the Lord, in that day I shall have cleansed you from your iniquities. I'll also cause you to dwell in your cities, and the way shall be built up, and the desolate shall be tilled. Okay, right now it's like a desert out there. All right, Lord's basically saying it's going to return into what? A garden of Eden, man. All right, it's going to be beautiful, and it's going to say that. All right, whereas it lay desolate in the sight that all that passed by, and they shall say, this is the land that was desolate, and it's become like a garden of Eden. That land right now ain't the garden of Eden right now, man. Okay, it's inherently a desert. When we go back up into that land, all right, it's going to be beautiful, man. It's going to be like, you go see the Amazon and all of that. It's going to be even more beautiful than that. That goes to show you that what? The people that are within that land right now, that's not the people of the Most High. Okay, the people of God. Okay, the waste and the desolate ruins and the city shall become fenced and inhabited. Okay, so pretty much, hey, that's the video, and hopefully that was of edification. With that, I'm gonna say, all praise unto Yahweh Shai wa Kadash, double honors unto the apostles of great millstone, on she brothers that be pushing this truth in sincerity. Shalom.
Welcome back, beautiful and amazing human beings, and in this video we are going to go over all the latest propaganda, disinformation, bullcrap, and hooey out there that's being propagated on you for social conditioning and manipulation. Whoa, that was a mouthful there, but in short, we're just going to go over all the latest news, especially with Trump texting everybody, John Bolton out for blood, Trump tax talks, and we're going to do something different and actually review Joe Rogan's new Netflix special, which I just watched and I find very fascinating, and will give my critique at the end of this video. Now, before we start, I wanted to thank everyone who supports this independent media broadcast by buying a shirt on teesprings.com/store/wearchange. The link will just be in the description below. And just know, your support means the world to us and helps us be totally free. So sincerely, thank you again for everyone who supports us through this way. Now, just moments ago, almost every single American citizen currently in the United States got a text message from FEMA, the horrible, terrible bureaucratic organization, as well as the President of the United States, testing their National Wireless Emergency Alert System, which, of course, no one could opt out of, glaring a very annoying sound to everyone's cell phone, which to me is a perfect representation of government saying, "Ah, ah." If the government could ever be exemplified or represented just through sound, that would be it. And of course, a lot of people were concerned about this, but of course there was a big political debate with Trump-tards calling libtards dumbasses that would rather die in earthquakes because this was a system, quote, for your safety. And you know, if you look at the history of government, they really don't care about the safety of their citizenry as much as their interests that they serve. And I have to say, I quite agree with Mike Cernovich, who is a Trump supporter, who said, quote, to be quite honest, today's text, even from the great Trump, oh lordy, quote, was about social control and manipulation. Always remember the structures that, quote, your guy can use will soon be used by the other guy. And other than the great Trump comment, I totally agree with him because this system was actually established by Barack Obama. You know, the president who normalized the U.S. government spying on every aspect of American citizens' lives through a mass data bulk collection program. And overall, I do have to say it is concerning that first the government looks into everything you're doing on your phone and now is sending messages to it. And even though it's a very small incremental step, to me it's still a small step towards a slippery slope that should be met with skepticism. And in other news, why you shouldn't trust government, Dick Cheney is in the news today as it was announced that there's a new movie in the works that comes out Christmas this year detailing the political rise of Dick Cheney, which promises to discover the untold true story that changed the course of history forever. It includes little tidbits like Dick Cheney shooting his friend in the face, which he later had to apologize for, some suggestions about corruption when it comes to oil, his military contractor company Halliburton, the Iraq War, plus a lot more. And hopefully this will be an expose that details the true diabolical nature that was Dick Cheney and not just a Hollywood fluff piece, which we will find out when the movie comes out. And now in other mutated Dick Cheney cousin news, we have John Bolton, bloodthirsty neoconservative warhawk, who did what he does best and destroy more international relations and push for more conflict between the United States and other Middle Eastern countries. This is of course Trump's close national security advisor, who today announced that the United States is pulling out of a 63-year-old friendship treaty with Iran, publicly declared that Palestine is not a state, confirming it many times to reporters, saying the so-called state of Palestine, and then fear-mongered how Iran is showing a policy of hostility towards the United States. And you know, a lot of other people see it a little bit differently than that, ever since the CIA overthrew their government and led them to their religious theocracy that they're under right now. And with Iran not playing ball with the petrodollar being the main opposition country against Israel, this is why Iran has been on the chopping block of neoconservatives ever since their ideology prospered since 9/11. And that's the true story of what's happening here that of course the mainstream media will always neglect to tell you. And now let's get into one of my favorite topics, taxes. Freaking taxes. Such a dirty word. And of course, I'm talking about the latest allegations by the New York Times against current sitting President Donald Trump that he allegedly engaged in suspect tax schemes with his father in the 1990s, dodging taxes with tax schemes, which the New York Times says included instances of outright fraud. Now, it's important to understand here, during the presidential election, Donald Trump kept his tax returns confidential, never released them to the public like previous presidential candidates, and now, according to the New York Times, the Trump family is a lot richer than we thought, and Trump might have even understated his wealth. Now, of course, Donald Trump launched back against the New York Times, warning of a defamation lawsuit against them for this article, which the New York Times reported that they are, quote, not concerned at all about these warnings. And to add some perspective here, I do have to say that this is the same person who, when he announced he was running for president, said, quote, I am really rich. And I don't know if you guys knew this, but breaking news, major headlines, rich people don't usually pay taxes. They have a lot of tax breaks, a lot of tax incentives, and also different ways to launder their money so they legally don't have to pay taxes. So this story is not a surprise to me. Trump even bragged before that he was not paying taxes, and that, quote, made him smart. Every prominent person, no matter what field they in, they finagle around to not pay taxes, including Hillary Clinton and the Clinton Foundation, which she used to collect a whole bunch of money, promising to help people like the Haitians, especially after the 2010 earthquake, and then beating them over the head and robbing them blind, as we documented in this video, which is titled What Hillary Clinton Did to Haiti and will be linked in the description below of this video. And personally, my response to this entire story could be best exemplified through this meme. Yep, this meme right here definitely represents my whole thought process on this entire case. And, you know, less money going to government bureaucrats and bombing the Middle East, which most of that money goes to. Prove me if I'm wrong. Again, this is my own personal thoughts. If you disagree with me, let me know in the comment section below, which of course I answer within the first hour that this video is out. So if you want to be a part of the conversation, definitely click subscribe and the notification button to be a part of the conversation. And that's if YouTube allows you to see it. Now, moving forward, in completely different news, Netflix just released a new special by Joe Rogan called Strange Times, which I think would be very interesting for me to actually give you a full review of. Especially in today's day and age where Will Rogers says, quote, everything is changing, people are taking their comedians seriously, and the politicians as a joke. And that's a point that Joe Rogan made very clear throughout his entire special, always bringing up outrage culture and outrage mob mentality that has been ultimately destroying comedy as of late. And it was interesting to see him still be controversial in his own unique way, but kind of tiptoe around it, using the opportunity to clarify almost every joke he made, which was done in a very clever way, which was still funny, and at the same time countered back against anyone who would still be outraged by his joke. He talked a lot about the death threats he was receiving because of this mob outrage mentality happening online, and then, like he always does, very masterfully mix in crude fart butt humor with, of course, bigger introspective topics, psychological issues, and themes. Like how people mainly mess with each other because of their insecurities, childhood traumas, growing up in a single mother household, and even laid out very similar perspective to what Jordan Peterson has been talking about when it comes to the over-sexualization of women in our society and our workplace, which, by the way, Vice News made a major controversy when they unfairly edited and manipulated the statements made by Jordan Peterson around this issue. And Joe Rogan definitely brought this issue up in many thought-provoking ways, which I believe is very much needed, especially in a society now that tries to dictate what conversations are allowed to even be had. And that's why I agree with what Stephen Wright said when he said, quote, comedians or sociologists, we're pointing out stuff that the general public doesn't even stop to think about, looking at life in slow motion and questioning everything we see. And I believe Joe definitely did that, even bringing up this specific news case where a 25-year-old undercover female police officer was a part of a police sting operation, portrayed herself as an 18-year-old high school student, and seduced guys to give her marijuana, which of course led to felony convictions and just shows you how screwed up our society is. And this whole Netflix special, I believe, is an important social commentary that does push the Overton window, just like we saw pushed by other comedy greats like Richard Pryor, Bill Hicks, George Carlin, and even Eddie Murphy back in the day. Now, I'm not saying Joe Rogan is as great as the legends that I have mentioned before, but he is surely on his way towards that. So yeah, if you get a chance, I would definitely recommend checking it out. And yeah, that's it. Love you guys. Thank you again so much for watching. Stay tuned for a lot more.
Welcome to the Daily Wrap-Up, a concise show dedicated to bringing you the most relevant independent news as we see it from the last 24 hours.
Well, while most of America is completely consumed with things like the Kavanaugh hearings, the overall FBI investigation around that, or even things like the presidential text that went out today, which I will touch on today, but maybe not in the way you might think. Much of the most important news around the world and in this country continues to just fly under the radar. Domestic policy continues to get worse as we continue to hemorrhage our constitutional rights for the national security state, the war state, the welfare state. And our foreign policy continues to increase in its militaristic rage around the world, killing civilians, just bombing countries for no reason, it seems, and calling out every other country that's seen as the enemy of the United States for doing the very things the United States is verifiably doing. All of that flying under the radar while we're focused on the wrong things. And literally as if Saudi Arabia watched my show yesterday and said, let's do exactly what Ryan said we were likely going to do. They did exactly what I said they were going to do, and it shouldn't surprise any of us. But the brazenness with them being at the United Nations and willing to do what they just did is astounding to me. But it just goes to show you how little people are actually paying attention. Them knowing that the United States and the Western media will not pay attention to what they did, short of the independent media forcing it into the discussion, which is why it's so very important that we continue to push these topics into the mainstream discussion and reach the people that may not otherwise see this. The first story of the day is a hard one to take in, but it is, again, very important for us to continue to point this stuff out. And it's one that just took place in Yemen, literally while Saudi Arabia was at the United Nations trying to defend the fact that they were not committing war crimes and it was simply mistakes that they admitted to. As that was happening, as this title says, as Saudis defend against war crimes, the allegations around them, Saudi's airstrike in Yemen kills entire family. While they were doing that. This is literally what I was saying. And this is not a shock to most who watch this show. As we know, Mohammed bin Salman himself has said that he will continue to target children. And clearly he's continuing to target children. This shouldn't come as a surprise to anyone who actually understands what's going on, who actually reads the news and not just these propaganda outlets that pump you full of nonsense to keep you from paying attention to things like this. The reality of U.S. foreign policy, the reality of the U.S. allies and what they're doing around the world. And it's horrifying to see. So Saudi Arabia, of course, backed by the United States, carried out an airstrike targeting specifically a displaced family in the Mustaba district in the province of Hajjah, southwestern Yemen, early Tuesday morning. A man, his wife, and their 9-year-old daughter were killed in this strike, along with 10 other innocent civilian people. Rescue efforts were complicated by justified fears of additional strikes, as Saudi Arabia regularly uses what they call double tap strikes in Yemen, carrying out an initial airstrike and then circling back to specifically target rescuers seeking to aid those that were just hit by these airstrikes. Understand that they're striking civilians and then circling back to hit the people that rush in to help the civilians they just murdered. They're easily verifiable. We've talked about this many times in the past. Now, the latest attack comes just hours after Saudi Arabia admitted that its forces had committed what it called certain mistakes in Yemen, after increasing pressure from international bodies, of course, and human rights groups that accuse them of carrying out war crimes in the country, that they very clearly are. Saudi Defense Ministry spokesman, as we noted on in the last show, Oskiber Atolabai, I believe is how you say his name, told a panel of 18 independent experts on Monday that a coalition investigation had uncovered the existence of certain unintentional mistakes in a number of these operations, adding that the task force recommended that perpetrators should be held to account and victims should enjoy redress, which is knowing that they were literally, at that same moment, carrying out a strike on a civilian family. Of course, in her response to the Saudi Defense Ministry, the panel's chairwoman, Renate Winter, wondered why schools and hospitals had been targeted repeatedly. Said, quote, "You say it's an accident. How many such accidents can you bear, and how many such accidents can people in Yemen bear?" As we pointed out in the last show. Since the war began in 2015, the illegal invasion, more rightly called, the U.S.-backed Saudi-led coalition has repeatedly targeted displaced civilians. As they even flee these war zones, they completely target them, as Hussein al-Bukhaidia showed in many of his reports. In the most recent such attack before today, airstrikes targeted displaced families near the port city of Hodeidah on August 24th, killing or wounding 31 people, 24 of whom were children. Many of the victims of the strike belonged to a single family, and we covered this when it took place. Of course, knowing that Hodeidah, the Al-Baba port, I believe is how it's pronounced, being the most geostrategic important point to the U.S. coalition for many different reasons. and then simply just targeting the civilians in the area for many different reasons, but clearly committing war crimes, undeniably so, and then just saying, oh, well, we made a few mistakes, while doing the same thing again the very moment they're saying that. Now, this week specifically, one person was killed and a number of others sustained injuries after Saudi fighter jets, this is prior to the recent one we're talking about today, conducted an airstrike on Munira City in Hodeidah, western Yemen. Saudi jets also conducted an airstrike on the residential area of Ghafriya in the Dahir district in the northern province of Sadr, killing a child and wounding several others, civilians. As the reports show, over 600,000 civilians have been killed or injured in Yemen since the Saudi-led coalition began its attacks in 2015. This according to the Yemeni's Ministry of Human Rights based in Sana'a. The U.S.-backed coalition's blockade on Yemen has also triggered an epidemic of disease and famine across the country, as we continue to point out. So this 600,000 people is not including all of the 18 million plus who are essentially about to starve to death, eating leaf paste to survive, and the many others that die due to famine due to cholera outbreaks and things that we're talking about. This is just 600,000 people due to their strikes that were mistakes, as they claim. I mean, truly understand that they're standing there in front of the UN, knowing the U.S. and Israel are directly backing them, saying we're going to do our best to stop this and investigate while they're targeting a family. These are the people that the United States backs. Truly, these are the people the United States oligarchy are. And it's important that we begin to recognize that. If you have not yet seen it, I highly recommend you check out my recent interview with Hussein al-Bukaidi, an on-the-ground Yemeni journalist who's covering in the moment what's actually taking place there, risking his life, in fact, to regularly bring you the truth on the ground. And it is, in fact, some pretty horrifying things to see that are going on there. But I highly recommend you check out that interview because it is very important, chock full of some profound information, hard to hear, admittedly, but important nonetheless. As this continues, it's important that we continue to push these things into the mainstream discussion so people see what's really going on. Likely, the vast majority of the mainstream manipulated public has no idea that they just bombed a family and everyone and 10 other civilians with them while pleading their case to the United Nations. That may make a difference. Worth trying. On to some domestic news, a very important story, one that's near and dear to my heart. And of course, this shows you the very clear connection between these institutions, or rather these legal institutions in our country that are supposed to be, protecting Americans and working for your best interest, who work hand in hand with the very companies that are robbing you of your health while telling you they're working for you. A great article, one of two that I'm going to be talking about today from Carrie Wedler. This one entitled, DEA Grants Pharmaceutical Company Monopoly on Medical CBD. Interesting. How this is supposedly something, that's just so dangerous for your health. Oh, but wait a minute. A company in our pharma industry made something that's just like that one that we'd see naturally, and that's the one that we're going to make okay. Do you see what's going on here? Interesting how this stuff always seems to work out. This is a very important story. And again, it's a microcosm of a much larger problem in this country that goes well beyond big pharma. But the hand-in-hand connection between our government and our corporations that has nothing to do what's in your best interest. So news circulated recently, which I was actually unaware of, that had slipped by, which is important, but also not correct, as we now find out, that the DEA had rescheduled cannabidiol, CBD, the non-psychoactive ingredient in cannabis, meaning it can't get you high. But the technicalities, however, of the agency's decision actually now show that the ruling is highly restrictive and is essentially not at all what they're actually doing. So it's actually good that we didn't see it and report on it, because it was basically a lie or a deception, ultimately. The decision concerned a recent FDA-approved pharmaceutical version of CBD. Of course, why would we want the natural version that's perfect the way it is? Of course, we need big pharma to recreate it and add what they need to make it slightly less perfect, but something they can patent and sell you. And then, of course, sell you more drugs as the side effects from their flawed version always seem to pop up. Now, this produced by GW Pharmaceuticals due to the federal government's continued prohibition of cannabis, which again is absurd, knowing that the vast majority of this country disagree with that in this so-called democracy. Epidiolex, I believe is how it's pronounced, was prohibited, interestingly, from going to market unless the DEA rescheduled CBD. Interesting how that works. So this whole time, people are doing research and showing the medicinal purposes, the way it could be used to solve so many problems. And they don't care. Who cares? It's illegal. You're going to jail if you use it. Oh, but the pharmaceutical company creates a version of it. And guess what they do? Without delay, they rush and make sure they can legalize CBD. But wait, not CBD for everyone. So this of course, led some people to believe that since the FDA had approved this specific medication, that they had essentially, then this was actually, so you know, basically pure CBD, but manufactured. And this led them to believe that, of course, maybe all CBD products would also be approved, but they would be mistaken. The DEA decision applies specifically only to the FDA-approved drugs we're talking about, meaning they have only granted GW Pharmaceuticals drug and essentially given them a monopoly on the plant-derived CBD. See how this worked out? They immediately hop to when a pharmaceutical company creates basically the same thing in a lab. And instead of, and so they allow it to pass, but not all CBD, only the one that they made because they can profit from it. Now, the DEA said, quote, "What this does not do is legalize or change the status of CBD oil products." Just point blank. As of right now, any other CBD product other than Epidiolex remains a Schedule I controlled substance. Understand, meaning that by definition means it has no medicinal value and is highly addictive, both of which are factually and verifiably incorrect. But they don't care about that. Only if a big pharma company makes the exact same thing, then they'll legalize it. See how that works? So ultimately, it's still dramatically illegal under federal law, even while most of the country has legalized it. Now, what is getting approved is Epidiolex itself as a drug, not CBD, pursuant to the new drug application that they put in, relating to its medical efficacy and low potential for abuse, they claim, which is exactly the same thing of CBD. You see this inherent contradictory here. Now, marijuana is still, in fact, a Schedule I substance, as all of you know, under federal law. But CBD is not scheduled itself, they claim, but as a substance derived from marijuana, is just lumped in with all of it. Same thing. I mean, it's absurd to see the inherent hypocrisy in all of this. Maybe the same way that the United States government has held a patent on the medical use for cannabis, marijuana, for decades, even while they arrested people for having it as a Schedule I drug, meaning it has no medical value. Very easily verifiable for any of you out there. They have had a patent on the medical use for marijuana for a very long time. I've done entire shows on this. And even still kept it Schedule I and even still arrested people for trying to use it to treat their medical issues. Now, the DEA's decision on Epidiolex simply means a giant corporation enjoys, of course, the perks of government rulemaking. And it will likely be other pharmaceutical companies that reap all the benefits. Even in regard to researching CBD, actually, even just the researching, this applies only to studies conducted on Epidiolex. Not CBD in general, just their version of it. This is exactly what I've been saying since the very beginning. That we will see these steps toward these ridiculous one step forward, two step back kind of progression towards legalization, as long as they can control it. And this is what they're doing. They're dragging their feet, regardless of what the people want, so that they can control it. And this is what we're seeing. That they can manipulate it, they can patent it, they can charge you, they can tax it, they can do everything they normally can with all the other drugs they have, and God knows what else they're going to do with it. Sure as hell ain't CBD when it's coming from a big pharma lab. That's how I see it. But, as always, come to your own conclusions, but it's very clear, as I point out, the underhanded, behind-the-back connection between the DEA, the FDA, and these government institutions and the big pharma corporations. Hard to miss it. Moving on to the next story, in regard to foreign policy, again coming from anti-war, about the absurdity of our foreign policy in regard to Syria that's becoming glaringly apparent. This one entitled, U.S. Sending Mixed Signals on Military's Role in Syria. You don't say. I think that's something we can all basically realize now, but this is becoming almost humorously obvious in a way that they don't even know what to say anymore. And it seems like it just doesn't matter, honestly. So U.S. officials are now completely open about their intentions to keep military forces inside of Syria indefinitely, apparently. Despite this, of course, directly contradicting what Trump has said himself many, many times. But this openness about their illegal invasion and occupation policy in Syria is, however, raising questions that Trump administration officials are apparently not ready to answer. One of which is simply why? Seems like an easy one. State Department Special Envoy James Jeffrey says that the goal is enduring defeat of ISIS and, quote, nothing else, saying that, quote, it's not broader than that. And meanwhile, in the macabre comical sitcom that is U.S. foreign policy, according to John Bolton, it's broader than that. Bolton didn't even mention ISIS, saying instead that the U.S. troops in Syria are there to block the movement of Iran and Iranian allies. See, just a complete disconnect between what President Bolton is ultimately saying and what other people are trying to say. And the point is they haven't gotten the memo, that we're finally admitting that Iran is while we're there, and many other things. It's not just Iran. There's many much deeper narratives and reasons and intentions behind all of this. But very clearly, it's not to fight their proxy army of ISIS, the ones they created, funded, put in place, and used as a justification and a lie to illegally invade Syria. It's to overthrow the government of Syria and actually to stand against Iran, and many other things as well, as we've gotten into on this very show. But the absurdity of seeing them toss this ball around, this hot potato, well, no, it's about ISIS, no, it's about Iran, no, it's about Assad, they just don't even know anymore. And again, the point being, it doesn't seem like it even matters anymore, because some people are just so convinced or lost into other propagandized stories that they're not even paying attention anymore. Until, of course, the next false flag comes around, and we'll see who's paying attention. Now, Bolton agreed that U.S. troops are staying in Syria indefinitely, but that they are holding out until Iran withdraws not only from Iranian troops from Syria, or their Iranian troops from Syria, but also, of course, their proxies, which, according to the administration officials, apparently cover some 80% of Assad's forces. So, in other words, they're never leaving, is what that really breaks down to. That should be pretty clear to most of you on the show, but hopefully that just made it abundantly more clear. Moving on to the next story, this one coming from commondreams.org, entitled, Rejecting U.S. Claims They Don't Harm Humanitarian Aid, UN Court Orders Easing of Sanctions Iran Calls Illegal and Cruel. Now this is an interesting development to see how this is progressing. For one of many reasons, but most importantly, simply showing that the world is not in line with U.S. agendas, and which is something they want you to think. More than anybody, they want the United States to think. They want us as Americans to believe that the United States is morally correct, and everyone that's anyone stands with what they're trying to accomplish. However, that's not true. And now we're actually seeing a lot of people stand up, including the European Union and the United Nations and the International Criminal Justice, and all these different groups coming out and saying, yeah, we don't agree with what you're trying to accomplish here, which is interesting. So a preliminary ruling from the International Court of Justice, the ICJ, which Washington is expected to just blatantly ignore, like they have in the past, comes after President Donald Trump in May announced that he was withdrawing from the United States, withdrawing the United States from the Iran nuclear deal and reimposing economic sanctions. Despite, of course, warnings doing so would harm the general international community and Iran specifically, which, of course, when you understand sanctions, is the point. Hurting the Iranian people so to affect the Iranian government, even though they pretend to be fighting for the Iranian people. It's a ridiculous joke. The United Nations highest court on Wednesday ordered the Trump administration to ease sanctions on Iran that are impacting humanitarian aid and aviation safety, ruling that U.S. assurances the economic limitations would not endanger either were not adequate. Of course, they always make the claim that it's for these other reasons, which is just an easy way to include all of the ridiculous claims they make, but that it's actually hurting humanitarian aid. It's hurting the people, is what that ultimately boils down to. And as they say, aviation safety. And of course, the U.S. assures them, no, that's not at all what we're doing, and then it does. But that's the point, you see. And now the United Nations and the ICJ are saying, yeah, you need to stop because you're hurting people, is what this boils down to. It says, quote, Iran's strategy of taking the U.S. to the International Court has paid off. This according to Trita Parsi, founder of and president of the National Iranian American Council, the NIAC. The U.S., of course, will disregard the ruling, but Iran's aim likely was to establish that it is the U.S. and not Iran that is the rogue nation now. And like she says, this is what they have accomplished. Clearly, they're the ones in line with the international community, saying that they are the ones hurting people. Now, Iranian Foreign Minister Javad Zarif, in a tweet, called the decision, quote, another failure for sanctions-addicted U.S. government and victory for the rule of law. Echoing Iranian President Hassan Rouhani's remarks to the United Nations last week, Zarif added that it is, quote, imperative for the international community to collectively counter malign U.S. unilateralism. And says, quote, make no mistake, ICJ decision that some U.S. sanctions on Iran are legal are as much a victory for Iran as it is a victory for the UN, that Parsi concluded. Quote, it shows that international law is behind the EU as it seeks to keep the Iran deal alive, and that it is Trump that's violating international law, or rather the Trump administration, the U.S. oligarchy, and Trump through them ultimately. But the point at the end of the day here is that this is very clear that the U.S. is on the wrong side of all of this. And I mean, even if you think that they're morally correct, which is kind of hard to understand unless you just buy them at their face value propaganda, that Iran is doing things that are bad around the world that we can't point to and we can't prove, but they're a bad guy. And then we're supposed to just fall in line and say, yes, that's why we should do this, even though their sanctions are actually hurting the people and not the government. But don't look at that. Do this because Bolton says so. But the reality is the rest of the world is saying we disagree. That has to stand for something. And of course, in an interesting development, this one coming from ZeroHedge.com, entitled, After UN Top Court Rules in Favor of Iran, Pompeo Terminates Decades-Old Treaty. Of course, because that's what you do, right? When they just disagree, you just tear up the treaty. Who cares? Just whatever. That seems like U.S. foreign policy today. As they continue to attack other people for violating treaties and international law, they continue to violate treaties and international law. But this is the way it is with the U.S. these days. It's complete hypocrisy under a moral standard because we are the U.S. and this doesn't apply to us. As Pompeo has even actually point blank said in these videos within the article you can check out for yourself, that this doesn't apply to the U.S. And Bolton said as much as well in a recent interview from today. He said point blank that none of these things apply to the U.S.'s ability to do what they think is in their national security interest, which is just this broad way of saying whatever we want to do. Nothing applies to us if we think it violates our national security. Which, as I pointed out in the past, is their scapegoat for anything they want to do. So Pompeo said in his State Department press briefing, quote, I'm announcing that the United States is terminating the 1955 Treaty of Amity with Iran. This is a decision that is 39 years overdue. Basically saying it's just never a good thing. And this is, of course, a treaty of amity, meaning, it's a positive step in the cooperation between Iran and the United States. Now, the decision by the UN and the ICJ, as we talked about, essentially gives legal cover for countries and companies seeking to still do business with Iran, amidst all the threats of punitive action by the U.S., should they actually proceed, which clearly, as we pointed out, the world wants to do. And this does directly affect all of the oil deals, which we'll get to in our next story, which directly affects not just everyone else around the world, but Americans. But Pompeo slammed the International Court's decision as null and void, and Iran's clinging to the decades overdue treaty absurd in announcing the termination. The ICJ rules on disputes between UN members, the UN member states, but its decisions are ultimately largely symbolic and non-binding as it has no way to enforce them. The United States has no higher chain of appeal now that the ICJ has finally ruled on the issue. So the United States can't run to anybody else to try to overturn this, but as we stated, they're just simply going to ignore it, like they do with so many other things. Now, in a directly related story, now this has to do with the oil and how the sanctions affect Americans as well, and our bottom line and our money in regard to what our gas costs. This is a great article coming from the Ron Paul Institute entitled "Trump to Saudi King, Pay Up for U.S. Military Protection," which, as of course Daniel McAdams rightly points out, is kind of unpatriotic and offensive to simply say that the military and these service members are just a bunch of mercenaries. We're going to send in our people, or we're going to pull away their protection if you don't pay up. Point blank. You know, as Ron Paul points out correctly, they've usually kind of guised this under the idea of some kind of national security interest, but Trump just point blank says, you better pay up or you're not going to get our protection anymore, making it very clear that they're the bully kind of gangster mentality that we've seen them as. It's very interesting. Now, the paragraph before the video, which I recommend you watch, says, frustrated by the Saudi refusal to increase oil production by 2 million barrels a day, President Trump said at a rally yesterday that absent U.S. military protection, the Saudi government would not last 2 weeks, which I kind of agree with. But that being said, he said the Saudis should, quote, pay up if they want to remain in charge. Now, understanding how this all works out, the reason they're having these issues with oil and as he points out rightly in the video, the idea behind this is that Trump is trying to push forward this idea of economic growth and jobs and success and prosperity. But now we're all of a sudden having issues where we're paying a lot more for gas than Americans want to, which in Americans' eyes, that's kind of a big deal. You know, it's whatever affects our bottom line. And the point being that now he's trying to find ways to balance that. And of course, just turns to Saudi Arabia and says, produce more oil. And apparently, they recently just said no. To sum up a long chain of events, they basically just said, no, we don't want to do that. And so now he's essentially threatening them on the world stage and saying either you produce 2 million barrels more of oil so I don't look bad while I'm threatening other countries such as Venezuela and Iran, where a lot of this oil could potentially come from if they weren't doing this, then we're going to pull our military support, showing you the mercenaries that they're making themselves out to be. Now, as they point out, they ask the question, why are oil prices going up, which we talked about, who's to blame? And they say the best answer comes from a surprising source. And they point out that, in fact, President Putin spoke up. He says, quote, President Trump has said he thinks the oil price is too high. Well, probably to some extent he's right. But we are absolutely okay with it at $65, $75 a barrel to ensure the efficient operation of oil companies and ensure investment. But let's be frank. Such oil prices are to some extent the result of the U.S. administration. I'm talking about sanctions against Iran, about political problems in Venezuela, and just look at what's happening in Libya. Very interesting to see President Putin speak up about something like this and being spot on in my eyes. And it's important to recognize the reality here that as Trump is threatening Saudi Arabia with their support unless they produce more oil so he doesn't look bad, realize that all of this, everything we're talking about, is due and created by U.S. sanctions around the world, in particular Iran, as they threaten everybody from doing deals with them. It's a very interesting chain of events to see how it all leads back to the United States and their foreign policy. For the final story of the day, this one, I wouldn't call it important, but it is important to cover for the reasons that Carrie Wedler lays out. Now, there's a lot of conspiracy flying around about this entire story, and maybe rightly so. This one, entitled The Presidential Alert Text, is everything you need to know about the U.S. government. All the conspiracies aside, which may in fact be true, people talking about the idea that this somehow was used, had all of a sudden had access to your information, which I would argue they already do. So it's one of those things that's kind of like, it could be true, but likely more so that this is more about control and the ability to access everybody in an instant, which some people say is a good thing. But the points that Carrie lays out are very, very important to understand in regard to government in general. Now, of course, she says, number one, no one has ever asked if you wanted it. Apparently because of a law passed in 2006, the government can assert the president's right to text you even if you turn off other government notifications. Similarly, the increasingly omnipotent government at large never asks if you'd like to participate. Though politicians and their supporters can claim we are the government, all they want, we were never given a chance to I'm sorry, I was reading her quote. Though politicians and their supporters claim that we are the government, they can do it all they want. We were never given a chance to actually voluntarily agree. And that's an excellent point she makes. Because regardless of how they try to make it seem like we are an integral part in all of this, we're never given a choice of whether we even want to participate. Taxes at the barrel of a gun is not freedom. Now she says, number two, if you don't have a choice over these impositions on your property, or you don't have a choice in general about the property aspect. And that I found to be very interesting because I hadn't considered that. Like, this is your cell phone. You bought this cell phone, and yet they have a way to access it and put things on it without you having any say in that, which I did actually find kind of profound that I hadn't thought about. And she says, even though we own our phones and our data plans, there's no way to opt out of the presidential alert. Just as owning your own home does not preclude the government from taxing it and confiscating it if you refuse to pay, the government can also apparently invade your private home or your phone and your home, right? But I found that to be pretty interesting. Number three, she says you can't opt out. Now, you might be able to opt out of annoying cold calls from private companies, she says, but when it comes to government, you have no choice. You were never asked if you wanted to participate. You can't prevent the state from infringing on your private property. And you can also can't peacefully excuse yourself from this process. If you, for example, decided you didn't want your tax dollars to fund imperial wars that kill innocent people, well, too bad, she says. If you don't want to fund mass surveillance, tough luck. And if you refuse to pay, you'll be thrown in a cage. If you don't want to go through the TSA's body scanners, you can technically opt out, but only insofar as you're willing to have your private parts groped by a government agent. This is what defines government. Its ability to force you to submit without requiring your permission and without giving you an alternative. You can't even leave if you don't like it without paying a compulsory exorbitant fee. And that's an excellent point. Again, Carrie always has a way of kind of hitting it on the nail in these kind of hot button topics for people. And she says, number four, of course, it's for your own safety. Many are convinced the alerts are necessary in order to protect us. But as she points out in the beginning, it's not like we haven't already had these things before. These FEMA alerts and these things already existed. So the fact that this is so necessary for our protection seems kind of redundant. It's superfluous. Oh, at the end of the day, it's something that we've seen many times in the past. So I find it it's kind of ominous, ultimately, that we're simply just reasserting the same thing, but it comes directly from the president. She goes on to say, but just as FEMA is certain these texts will help in emergency situations, the government at large insists it's there to protect you. The previously mentioned wars, mass surveillance, and state-sanctioned sexual assault are all in place to preserve public safety, of course, just like President Trump's text. Now, I really enjoyed I recommend you read the whole article for yourself. Carrie Weather always does an excellent job with these things. But the reality of all of this stuff is that nothing is like it seems. Right? I mean, all of this stuff coming in front of us today, the Kavanaugh hearings and the FBI and all of this stuff, and I think even this text scenario, in a large way, keeps us from focusing on what's really going on around the world and at home, and really shows you the lack of actual freedom and rights that we have today, even though we think we do. It's kind of an illusory concept today that we think we have all these things, but when it really comes down to it, you don't. And there's a mechanism in place to make you feel like you have some kind of access to these things. But like I said, at the end of the day, when you really push the issue, they seem to just disappear right in front of you. And this kind of a thing is something that hopefully we can see through. But again, when it comes back to things like the U.S. allies around the world, the illegalization of plants, and when they make their own version of it, it seems to be completely okay. It needs to show you what's really important to these people. And I can promise you, if you continue paying attention, you can see that it's not you. Thank you again for joining me today. Unfortunately, there will not be a TLAB R&R today, but I will make sure and do one tomorrow. And as always, question everything. Come to your own conclusions. Stay vigilant.